walam yulad, walam yakullahu kufuwan ahad. Sadaqallahul Azim. On behalf of Corporate Pakistan Group, I am grateful to all our panelists, moderator, and all the participants who are attending today's session. This is our second dialogue. Yesterday, we hosted one dialogue on Pakistan's economy and way forward under current scenario, and 15,000 plus participants attended virtually. 473 participants through Zoom and rest of the participants through Facebook Live. So this is still, again, live at Facebook. You will visit Nutshell Conferences page, and this is already started at Facebook. So Federal Minister for Industries, Hamad Azhar, our members, Shehzad Dada of Standard Chartered and Overseas Investor Chamber, Maheen Rahman of Al-Falah Investment, Dr. Amjad Waheed of NBV Funds, two economists and analysts, Muzammil Aslam and Khurram Shehzad, also participated, while Sajid Aslam, country head of ACCA Pakistan, moderated the discussion. So today we also released the summary and recommendations of yesterday's discussion, while today's discussion is on business continuity. And we have 5 panelists with us. Ghayas Khan, who is the CEO of Angro Corporation. Irfan Wahab Khan, who is the CEO of Telenor Pakistan. He is also the EVP for Asia for Telenor Group. Farooq Khan, an investment banker, and he is Managing Director and CEO of Pakistani Stock Exchange. So he will cover the financial markets. Dr. Zilaf Munir, she is the Managing Director and CEO of English Biscuit Manufacturers, a very respectable member from Lahore, the former president of Lahore Chamber, and the chairman of Engineering Development Board, Almas Haider Saab. So these 5 are panelists of today's discussion. The duration of this discussion is 70 minutes, and moderator is one and only Syed Waqarul Islam. He is the CEO and Director of Jaffer Business Systems, and he's also the member policy board of SECP. So over to you, Waqar, for the discussion. And time for the discussion I mentioned earlier, 70 minutes. So please start the discussion. And I'm grateful to all the participants at Zoom and at Facebook Live. And thanks to the panelists. And also a special thanks to Ghazanfar Ali of IBM, who is our member. He's managing this telecast. And also Rizwan Tiwana, who is the convener, and Sajid Aslam of ACCA. So this is the team who is organizing the series of dialogues. Next week is another dialogue we will announce in the end. Over to you, Waqar.
Thank you very much, Asfar. Assalamu alaikum and very good evening, everyone out there on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. Topic, as you know, is about business continuity during COVID-19. A topic which is relevant, which is extremely important to not just leaders and businesses out there, but to also every individual who is tuning in, be it on the Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. Just before we start, a public service message from Corporate Pakistan Group: stay safe, stay healthy, practice social distancing, not just for yourself, but for everyone connected with you anywhere around the world. Just to start, before we go further with the discussion, I just want to brief all the participants as well as people who are watching the program about few logistics. As Asfar said, this is on Facebook Live, so go to Nutshell Conferences page and you can join in there as well, and those who have the link can join via Zoom too. In terms of logistics, as to how we'll proceed in the next around 70 minutes, I am assisted by Ghazanfar Ali, who is the country manager for IBM Pakistan, for 2 reasons. One, just in case technology plays its part and I face certain glitch at my end, then Ghazanfar will take over from me as a host and would run the program till the time I'm able to join in. And this is just also an important message for everyone that even in these unprecedented times, disaster recovery is extremely important. The second point is that please keep your questions coming in on, you can see Q&A icon on your panel. Put your questions in. Ghazanfar will be looking at those questions during the course of this entire conference and would be collating them. Right at the end, he will be picking up 5 key themes which are more or less dominating the question answers from each of the participants out there, and he will direct those to me, and then I'll ask the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in unprecedented times. These are times which none of us in our lifetimes have seen, and possibly even our older generation or previous generation did not see them. It is what many of us are calling, it is a new normal. And there are very distinct characteristics of this new normal. What was normal 3 weeks ago seems like a distant past now. What was actually normal yesterday is no more a normal today, and what is normal today will not be a normal tomorrow. World has never witnessed this kind of change, this kind of pace, this kind of volume, and in this kind of massive disruption to deal with literally on a day-to-day basis. It is characterized by 3 key things to me. First is the pace and volume of change. It's massive, it's phenomenal. It came like nobody expected, and possibly it's got majority underprepared, and that possibly is an understatement. Unprepared is possibly more like it. The second characteristic of this of this new normal is the unpredictability of it. We don't know when it will end. Maybe it will end in 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. It may continue even for a year, possibly 2 years, who knows? Who knows, virus goes away and then comes back. And then what happens? Who knows what happens once you are able to flatten the curve through whatever means you have. And the moment you start going back to the new normal, whatever it is going to be, the world comes back to it. And that unpredictability makes leadership that much more challenging, but in many ways that much more fun as well. And we'll hear from leaders as to how they are dealing with this. The third, which is an also extremely important element of this new normal, is about there is no playbook available. There are no best practices. There are no management books which more or less describes how to deal with these kind of changes, this kind of pace, this kind of unpredictability. So that the world is learning on the job, making corrections, trying, in some cases failing fast, recover, do again, and come back and display leadership again. So it's the lack of playbook, lack of best practices, which makes it that much more difficult, but as I said, that much more challenging, and hopefully that much more fun as well in terms of decision making. So we will hear from the practitioners, we'll hear from the leaders who have been at the midst of these change, navigating through these changes, leading their businesses as well as their people in these unprecedented times. So I want to start the panel discussion, and each of the panelists is requested to please keep the intro to about between 3 to 5 minutes, so that we have more time for dialogue and question and answer. I'll start the dialogue with Farooq Khan, who is the Managing Director for Pakistan Stock Exchange. And the reason I pick him to go first is because Stock Exchange more or less had a decision to lock down or not to open or to open. And this is a decision they had to make right at the beginning, and gladly they decided to proceed, and in hindsight, possibly a right decision. But Farooq, to lead us through on how the whole process worked in terms of decision making, what could have been done better, what are the lessons learned, what are the good things that happened, and what are maybe some of the key recommendations that he thinks people out there need to learn from your experiences. Thank you very much. Over to you, Farooq.
Thank you so much, Vakar, and thank you for the introduction and having me on the panel. The question that you asked is a hugely important and interesting one, because whether to continue a business, you have on the one side a real danger and threat to your stakeholders, which include your staff, your customers, other stakeholders of potential illness and life-threatening illness potentially. And on the other side, how do you balance the overwhelming macroeconomic need that the markets must continue and must function. And particularly when one looked at really every market in the world, including at that time in Italy, which was the worst hit of all the countries in the world, and then the markets had been operating there, including in our region. So when the lockdown sort of discussion started, and one started hearing, it was a matter of time because it happened in Pakistan and specifically in Karachi. So we did start having discussions with all our stakeholders, and being a market, being a stock, the stock exchange, there are, for better or for worse, different interests, which would gain or lose depending on what decision you took. But our responsibility as an exchange is to provide a fair, transparent, and functioning marketplace. Really, whether the market goes up and down, there are other forces and other reasons for that. But our primary responsibility to our stakeholders is to provide that transparent, well-functioning, operational market. And we took some lessons from when we had closed the market very unfortunately back in 2008. And I was also here for my sins at that time, but in a different sort of role, as a member of the exchange at that time. And at that time the members owned the exchange, and when we had the members meeting to decide whether to close or not to close, I still remember there were about 134 members. 133 voted to close, and I voted not to close. And I got a lot of flack for it, but to their credit, the other members came around to my view after a few days, because once you close a market down, it is very difficult to reopen it. And last time it took us a good 4 or 5 months to open the market again. And we are still, as a country, as an economy, as an investment marketplace, suffering for that decision. So it all really weighed very, very heavily on me, on the board, on the regulator, on the other participants. And in the end, as you said, we decided to keep the market open. And I'm glad, I think almost all participants agree that was the right decision. Now, the challenge here was, and some of the things that you mentioned, what we learned, I had a personal challenge because I had literally just come back from London, and I was in the exchange for about 2 weeks before all of this broke open. And one of the key things that you must have and what you learn is the team, because you have to understand the team has to trust you, you have to trust the team, you have to know their strengths and weaknesses to push through a crisis like this. And that was obviously a personal challenge that I had, not having worked with this team here over a period of months or years, and it was literally 2 weeks. But I'm proud to say that the team really pulled through. And we had been looking at our disaster recovery processes as well as remote working. And here, I'm sure it'll come out in the discussion, the differences between a services company and a manufacturing industry, because there are differences in how do you keep operating in those two circumstances. And the key issue was that most disaster recoveries work on the premise that you will be able to not access your main premise, but some other part of the city or another part of the world. Here you have the unprecedented situation, as you said, where all the country was potentially going to the lockdown. So even our disaster sites, which were in other parts of Karachi or other parts of city, were potentially not going to be accessible. So that is something that we had to really work upon, that how do you truly work remotely? And while the market was on, we did do live shutdown and opening of the market, from remote distances. The other key lesson that we learned was that you're really as strong as the weakest link in your supply chain. And so it is important not just for PSX to have its the DR and remote working and everything really strong and worked out, but if our trek holders or our brokers are not equally sophisticated in terms of remote working, then the market won't function. So in the 2 weeks running up to it, and literally from the second day that I arrived, we started working on it. We had to work very closely with all our other stakeholders to make sure that they can also work remotely, because it wasn't good enough for just us to work remotely. So I think these were two very important lessons. And I guess the third was that in a situation like this, you have to be flexible. There's no ego involved. You take a decision today, and tomorrow, if you have to change it, you have to change it. So, we did have to, in the first 3-4 days, change the starting times, change other policies regarding market halts, etc., because the situation was evolving, on a day-to-day basis. And I think that flexibility at a company level, at the country economy level, is really important for policymakers. That you do make the changes in view of the changing situation. I think I'll stop there. Perhaps, I don't know. I'm not keeping time, but I guess it's been 3 to 5 minutes, so I'll stop there, and happy to expand on some of these points later in the discussion.
Thank you, Farid. You did well on the time, so well done. In terms of and you touched upon a few very interesting themes, and I really like your central theme around team, which is more or less your own team, but also around ensuring that your stakeholders are able to keep pace with what you intended to do in terms of enablement and in terms of being able to keep pace with the changing time. So the whole ecosystem was well covered, and that point came across very well. You also made a very interesting point, which possibly will come back during the course of the discussion, that once you lock down, it's not easy to come back. And that is also a key theme in terms of business leadership making decisions on what to do next and where to go next. Another industry which has been right at the middle of the storm, as they say, during these times. So while the world possibly slowed down, here is an industry which needed to pick up a pace and expand at a rubbish pace to keep pace with this work from home phenomena or from this virtual world phenomena. And that is our telecom industry. So we have Irfan Wahab, who is EVP Telenor for Emerging Asia, as well as for CEO for Telenor Pakistan, to lead us through on how the industry is coping up with this challenge, which is very different to the challenges faced by other industries, where a business slowdown is massive and it's profound. But here you have an industry which has to cope up and more or less be at the center of business continuity. So how the whole process worked, how have been last 3-4 weeks, again, key lessons, key playbook that you would recommend for people out there who are listening. Irfan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Vicar. You're right. I mean, telcos are normally considered as very resilient and robust when it comes to, crisis management. Whether it's a natural disaster or, a security situation, we thought that we were prepared, but nothing of the sort what we are experiencing these days. It's quite unprecedented. I mean, think of this as a black swan event, which no one was prepared. So, and then I was on a similar call a couple of days ago, because what Farooq also mentioned, the key is here is not just what we are entering into. I mean, there's hardly any visibility when we will get out of this. And the discussion we were having there were some estimates that in the best case scenario, we're looking at Q1 next year when things could be back to normal in terms of businesses. And a worst case could be even worse. I mean, it could be early 22. So how you prepare yourself amid all this uncertainty? I will talk about 4 elements, I mean, because these are key dimensions in terms of how you sort of approach this towards your own employees, which are the most important stakeholder in such a crisis, then to your customers, your shareholders, and then the larger community of the government stakeholders. So starting with employees, because I think that's where the challenge in the beginning was the hardest, right? So here and we were sort of one of the first ones actually to take the decision to close down the offices and start working from home. That was around March 13th, because what we see that things were getting bad in Europe. And we had, like, as you know, many operations in that part of the world where we're getting signals and how those companies are preparing. And we took a call, which was a quite difficult one, because it was also our 15th anniversary and a lot of events were planned. And we said that we cancel everything and we are sending everyone back home. Yes, being a technology company, one can argue that we were used to it, maybe 15, 20% of it, but the, the magnitude of this was quite overwhelming. And then some of the key learnings and observations which we've seen is that the anxiety which such events create, first of all, towards your own staff and employees. There's a lot of information which is flowing. People don't know what to trust. So it is extremely important for leadership to act as a role model, to act as a figurehead, to make sure your employees are actually provided the right information and they are taken care of. So that's where we put a lot of emphasis to make sure that we take care of them first of all, because as you said, we could already see that the ask for companies like us is huge in terms of making sure that the network is up and running, to coordinate all the the activities by health authorities, to make sure that people are staying in touch with their near and dear ones. So this anxiety was quite huge, I would say. I've also reading some actually a global health consultant who was saying that I rather experience this virus and get over it rather than waiting for it to hit me. That uncertainty, I think, created a lot of anxiety. So to stay in touch with the people, to communicate as much as you can, to act, to show empathy. I think empathy is the biggest word which comes in those, because you need to set different rules, because in our society, in our culture, a lot of people are living in joint family systems. They may not have excellent home offices set up. There may be kids running around, and just to expect that there will be delays in responses, just to expect that there will be delays in the tasks which they're supposed to do, because it's a new normal. I think that showing the heart side, showing the empathy is extremely important. So we did a lot of those interventions where basic things that just making sure that our employees receive the care packs of hand sanitizers and masks and all that delivered to their homes, to keep them aware of the information and the larger surrounding. Then comes the customer piece. And also, I think in our market, awareness was a big issue. When governments also start communicating, a lot of people, and even today, many people out there are not taking this very seriously. So we started with this public service messages where we have changed the ringtone, talking about coronavirus and the precautions which people need to do. We even went to the extent where we changed our symbol on top of any handset, rather than saying Telenor 4G, it was saying stay home. Symbolic things. We come up with a lot of other features and products for employees, for customers. Our 46 million customers are out there to make sure that facilitated things from waiving off charges for topping up, for example, also giving them free access to WhatsApp, larger bundles in terms of data when people are. So all those things are extremely important to show that you understand and care about those customers. And I think that association and that gesture goes a long way. Third element I would say is your stakeholders, which for any business is extremely important, to make sure that you remain very transparent. What we see is a surge in data for sure. We experience about 15 to 20% increase in the data demand in pockets. But at the same time, you also see a drop in the voice, and especially not necessarily the minutes, but the callers. And our hypothesis is that a lot of people in our society are daily wage earners. So when they don't have those disposable income, they will optimize and cut back. So how you prepare your shareholders to make sure that you are, you have sufficient cash and you have sufficient plans actually to make sure that the network is up and running, your service is up and running, you address the supply chain disruptions. We also did some decisions early enough to make sure that we enhance the capacities in anticipation that we are in it for a longer run and there will be a lockdown. And the last element I'd like to mention is the community and what you like to these are the times when you need to really shows the DNA of a company. How much they care about the wider society. And we are taking a number of other initiatives like everyone else here. But one I would like to really mention here is the government program around ASAS, which is to disperse money to the poorest of our society, 12 million beneficiaries in an environment when there is no sort of, so telcos are the best bet to reach to the rural parts of the country through the distribution network, through services like Easy Pesa. And that's where we are stepping up our efforts, reaching out. And also, there's a lot of innovation which is happening in this through how we can really leverage wallets, how we can do the digital payments to make sure that people maintain social distances. There are no queues at the retail outlets. People are aware of the hygiene and some of those basic things. So I think it's a mix of all those. There's a lot of learnings, but that one thing is quite clear: the role which technology can play for businesses. This will be, we will see a lot of innovation which is coming out of such adversity.
Thank you very much, Irfan. And the central theme between both Farokh and Irfan is one, revolves around your people. Showing empathy, communicating with them. Irfan also brought about a very important point, which is the role of leadership in sifting through the information and making sure that people are given the right information so that they don't get cluttered in their thinking and get demotivated and stay engaged. So that's also an extremely important point. Also talked about collaborating with the government in a way that we are able to reach lowest segment of the society using technology. And Irfan also mentioned a very interesting element, which is that in unprecedented time, the conventional wisdom more or less fails. So it gives rise to a lot of innovation. It gives rise to a lot of unorthodox thinking and many times unorthodox ways of decision making. We have another interesting panelist who represent an industry which needed to keep the supply chain going. We needed to make sure that the factory is running so that at least food can be provided to the people so that they hopefully not be affected due to hunger and poverty and those kind of things. So we thought from moving from telco and stock exchange we move towards the manufacturing side of how they have dealt with the industry, and who better than to talk about it than Zilaf Munir, who is managing director for English Biscuits. Zilaf, over to you, please.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the organizers for providing us this opportunity. I hope all of you are safe and healthy. Yes, we are in unprecedented times. Disasters and crises are not new to the world or companies. Yet, what is new is the level of interconnectedness and interdependence of the world. And hence, what is also new is the pain, which is universal. So the challenges are immense, and yet therein also lies opportunities. I believe it is a time that is going to define us, because as one of the panelists mentioned earlier, conventional wisdom may change, but I believe fundamentals do not. So it will bring out the best in us, and it will bring out the worst in us. So how we as leaders of the business community act and behave, I believe, is going to determine the future of our organizations. It is a test of our mission statements and our values for real. Our relationships with our employees, our stakeholders, our customers, our consumers, and our communities, and what the future of those relationships is going to be. Will it be based on trust and a shared vision of the future, or will it be based on short-term gains and profits? We at EBM, mashallah, being in the business of food, continue to run end-to-end operations from supply chains to sales continuously, which touches the livelihoods of 10 to 25,000 people directly. And if I include the trade, it would go into hundreds of thousands. The way we have been able to do that, if I were to enumerate, is creating a culture and belief in the entire organization in a higher purpose, acknowledging and addressing fears and anxieties of all head on, and taking definitive and proactive steps to alleviate them, be it the health and safety of our employees, or be it the livelihoods of everybody associated with us. And to just give you an example, as soon as we felt that there was going to be a lockdown, we had dispersed all salaries of employees, workers, all outstanding checks in advance to all of our people. The next would be defining the non-negotiables, then demonstrating our values in action by taking care of our people and our communities. Quick decision-making, adaptability, flexibility, creative solutions, and innovations. Engagement starting from me down to the leaders of all the teams. Robust crisis management through empowered leadership at all levels. And of course, leveraging technology to the utmost, whether it was to, within a matter of 24 hours, create an agile environment where all of our non-essential staff would be connected, to getting them connected in their own homes, providing them computers, providing them Wi-Fi access, and similarly in the fields where we were able to find ways of working through our sales team, through our distributors, and through retail and through trade. So I would say that what basically we did was take challenges head on, quick decision-making, flexibility, adaptability, and keeping everyone engaged. So where the more specifics of it to go into them, but that is what was the defining and driving force behind what we were doing.
Thank you, Zila. Excellent insight. Zila touched upon, the true test of organization, and that will come out once we are over this or as we move ahead from this. The other very, very important highlight of what she spoke about is to take the values and the mission and the purpose of this of any organization away from the walls, and in these times bring them to life. And she also shared some real life example, showing empathy with the people, making sure that their salaries are distributed, ensuring that how people are communicated, and taking the problem head on rather than hiding the facts from the people, which is so cardinal in terms of organizations handling these kind of process, these kind of unprecedented times. And she also spoke about, while conventional wisdom may fail, but the principles won't. And that's also an extremely important point to remember as we move ahead into this crisis, that the principles based on which organizations are formed, thrive, and sustain for a longevity are not changed with any crisis. In fact, if anything, good organization come out stronger and better from there. So thank you very much, Zila, for these insights. I now move to another extremely important organization. And this organization, by the way, has also shown leadership in terms of defining who they are by pledging a huge amount for taking care of the poor and the needy in terms of these tough times for possibly every segment of the society, but the poor, we all know, are clearly the hardest hit. But this organization is also at the forefront of many top initiatives which have shaped this country and where we are today. So we are very fortunate to have President of Angro Corporation with us, Riaz Khan. And in his intro, he will lead us through how the decision-making process and how they have gone through this unprecedented change and how does he see things coming in the future. Riaz, over to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum everyone. First of all, Asfar, thank you very much for inviting me to this event, and thank you, Waqar, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope that all of you and your families are in good health and keeping well. Just to set the context, I just want to spend about half a minute on what Angro does. We manufacture fertilizer, we produce power, we operate terminals which are used to import LNG and chemicals. We produce packaged milk, rice, we manage telecom towers, and we produce PVC resins and caustic soda in our petrochemical facility. The reason why I've taken you through this list is because barring one, which is PVC and caustic soda, which soon will also become essential service, everything that we do is classified as essential service. So, you know, when obviously this crisis hit us, it gave us a moment to actually sit back. And what we sort of realized was that for us, lockdowns don't matter, because we're not looking at a 15-day view or a 30-day view. This thing can last till the vaccination comes for 12 months. As Irfan said, it may go on till Q1 of 2022. And that's the view that we were required to take, because being essential service provider means that you have to work through the crisis and deal with it while you're walking through the crisis. So, you know, we came up with first thing we did was we came up with an overarching goal. And that goal was to keep our plant operations running, to keep them available with minimum or zero shutdowns because of COVID-19. And that overarching goal was then that led to two more sub-objectives. The first one is more or less a matter of time. What we want to do is our objective is to delay the arrival of patient zero on our plant facilities. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we are able to control the spread of the virus. But the way we are thinking about it as far as our business is concerned is that we're going to make every effort possible to delay the arrival of patient zero on our facilities. But more importantly, we also have to then think about and execute plans on what we will do when that happens. Because it's a statistical certainty. The way this virus has spread in other countries, I sincerely hope that whether it's the BCG vaccination or whether it's the weather conditions in Pakistan, the spread is slower. But nevertheless, we have to, as businesses, we have to prepare for the worst. And the position that we are in of providing essential products and services, for us, it was very important to get into that mindset that fine, put in all measures to delay arrival of patient zero, but then what will we do when that happens, and how can we continue to operate as a business when that happens? So our COVID response essentially was divided into five categories. First one is workforce protection. And of course, workforce protection for us being a diversified conglomerate takes a different meaning. Our fertilizer business, our plant is located in Dherki, where there is people live with their families. It's a sort of a gated community, but there are about 3,000 people over there. So, we're trying to make sure that entry exit points are well controlled. There are properly well-defined quarantine facilities. The way the shifts are organized, there is enough redundancy over there so that if Khuda na khasta any one person catches the virus, then there has to be a whole team which is there, which replaces the previous team, and the team in which if there is a virus detection, then is then quarantined. So there are layers upon layers upon layers of redundancies which are there. If I look at Thar, that's our power plant and mining facilities over there. There are living quarters, and it's sort of enclosed, so it's relatively simpler. Even though there are about 4,100 people working in those areas in that particular site. But then it gets a little more challenging if I talk of our facilities in Port Qasim, because there people are working at the sites and then going back to Karachi, back to their homes and families. So ensuring that there are proper controls, testing procedures, monitoring, adherence to all the necessary prevention measures becomes that much more important. So ensuring that our people get the best of facilities and they're protected is a foremost concern for us. The second aspect of COVID response is, of course, our supply chain stabilization. And again, this takes a different meaning for each business. So for fertilizers, of course, and for polymers, it's about the strength of the dealer channel, their ability to deal with the crisis. It's about warehousing, getting more warehousing for our finished products, and supporting the channel as much as we can, both financially and in terms of training them on how to deal with the crisis. For other businesses, where we are whether we are selling power or operations of the LNG terminal, where we're dealing with where we essentially in our power generation facilities, where we're just ensuring that the power is transmitted, their downstream supply chain issues are not as complicated. Third aspect is, of course, customer interface. And again, here we're trying to use technology as much as possible. In one of our companies, we were able to implement Salesforce last year, which is coming in very handy. There are SAP Fiori applications that have been deployed and are now coming to use. We deployed success factors for our HR last year, and that has proven to be, mashallah, very useful. So in terms of dealing with customers, and I'm leaving aside our customers like SSGC and the federal government as far as power is concerned, because those are more single customer relationships. But nevertheless, it's very important to keep in touch with the customers, and Irfan on this panel is a customer of ours as well. And since he's operating a business which is classified as essential service, the towers that we are maintaining for his business then also need to have an uptime of almost 99 to 100%. So it's obviously keeping in touch with the customers and reacting to their needs is extremely important. The fourth aspect, of course, is evaluating the financial impact. And again, for us, macros play a huge role here. Macroeconomic realities, as we discussed yesterday, are quite clear. Pakistan is going to come under severe fiscal pressures. That is going to probably have a sizable impact on the circular debt. So we're in businesses where we are concerned about the solvency of our customer and availability of liquidity. But here's where a lot of effort goes in, where you put in your best minds to run the different kind of scenarios which are required to be run for each business. Do all kinds of scenario planning and then figure out a way forward. The last aspect, as Waqar Saab, you said, is around community, and it's extremely inspiring to be part of Engro and what Mr. Hussain Daud did and what his family sort of announced in terms of contributing about ₹1 billion towards community efforts. And we're doing our best here at Engro to make sure that the impact created with that level of community and social investment is 10 times. And mashallah, say where Engro is right now in terms of its position, the amount of it's because of this country we are where we are, and we consider it our mission, our duty to play our part, which will inshallah come through two ways. One, ensuring that we keep these essential services available to the people of Pakistan, and secondly, to play our part as a responsible corporate citizen. So,
Thank you, Riaz. Thank you very much. It's interesting how every leader is bringing in a new element or a new dimension in terms of decision making. And Riaz more or less brought about a lot more bolder approach, if you like, in terms of how decision making went about, which means, for example, when an organization think about how can I delay the arrival of patient zero rather than saying, how do I make sure that it will not happen? Because statistically speaking, the chances are it will happen. And then rather than keeping an ostrich approach and not thinking about it, preparing for it, and should it happen, God forbid, what is needed to be done. So that's a very interesting perspective from a decision-making perspective and how things went about. And again, continuing with everyone else, engaging with your team, showing empathy with them, how strong you are in terms of giving them transparency. And another very interesting element which Riaz brought about, which in my view will be central to the new normal once during the whole process of this COVID-19, but also as the world emerges out of it, is the role of technology. Technology will drive the new world. And possibly many of the solutions which will come about using social distancing as the key theme in the way solutions will be designed into the future. So thank you very much, Riaz. Good insight. And once again, thank you so much, Angro, for taking a lead in showing serious corporate leadership towards the poor of this country by bringing in such a huge amount of money for the poor. Thank you so very much. So our last panelist is Mr. Almas Haider, who is president of Engineering Board. And engineering has a very strong role. And by the way, we are seeing it on display as well. When ventilators are being made in this country, suddenly robots are being made, suddenly new solutions around engineering are being evolved, which can handle and we can address these unprecedented times. So I would request Mr. Almas Haider to share his insight from an engineering board viewpoint and what his organization has been doing in the last few weeks and how he sees things going forward. Almas sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I do some work with the government also. But what I'm going to talk more about today is from the perspective of my company, which is Synthetic Products Enterprises Limited, known as SPEL. That's the acronym that we have in the market. Everything started a few months back in China, Wuhan. Everything closed down. The world didn't know what hit the world at that time. My father tells me that he's seen a couple of these pandemics or epidemics in his life. It was cholera, it was typhoid, it was TB, it was similar things have happened in history, but never to the extent that is happening now, and the world is actually not prepared for it. So we are learning while we are moving. The governments have decided to close down some businesses, and they have decided that some of businesses are critical, so the plants should stay open. So certainly we are in the middle of a situation where the governments decide who works and who doesn't. And companies that don't work or are asked to shut down, what happens to jobs over there and the people who are employed over there, how long it's going to last? Actually, nobody has a view on that. I've been talking to people in America, Italy, England, our own government here also, and we are already hearing about tertiary lockdowns, which means that there might be 4 lockdowns by December. This lockdown is going to end, then they will allow everybody to start working, the disease will raise its head again, it'll go back to a lockdown, and we'll do it the 3rd time, and we'll do the 4th time, and by that time, hopefully, a vaccine would have been um, finalized, approved, discovered, whatever. And that's the time when the world will go into a normal, what we think is normal of that time, which is absolutely a new normal. So we have to prepare not just for this lockdown, but we have to prepare for many other lockdowns that might come our way in the future. And that's how we are looking at it in our own company, because we need to make sure that our people are looked after even during the next lockdowns, and we don't feel tired of supporting them at that stage. So it's a much longer haul. Uh, I've been reading what's happening in different recessions, and every time there's a recession, it takes about, initially it used to take 3 to 6 months to recover. Now it takes about 2 to 3 years to recover. And in what has happened in Argentina, other countries, it took about 9 years to recover. So, so the whole world is shrinking. The strange thing right now is that we are not only looking at a freeze in demand, we are also looking at reduction in production. So both of these things together, we have never seen this. So we have to be more entrepreneurial about what we have to do in the future. Uh, there is an opportunity in adversity. In our own company, we have made this. One of the hospitals came to us and they said that the doctors are very afraid that when they are examining a patient, they might have a problem that he sneezes or coughs, and there may be a direct shower on their face. So, can you make a plastic shield for us? We are in the plastic business. So, this guy, can you make a plastic shield for us? We had to do it in 7 days. We had to design, develop, prototype, and make it available in 7 days. And we are now ramping up production. In about 10 to 12 days, we are already ramping up production. So those are the challenges. And these, you have to work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day. That's the only way to move. Now, as I said, there's an opportunity in every adversity. Right now, PPEs, the personal protective equipment, is needed by every hospital and every doctor. Anybody who can do anything. Apple Computer is doing this. Ford Motor Company is doing this. Everybody else that all the large corporations are either doing what they are doing, or they are going into manufacturing the personal protection equipment, even ventilators. Now, ventilator has become a buzzword, but what about nebulizers? What about many other things that the hospitals need? What about the beds that they need? What about the pans that they need? And what about the bed sheets that they need? And what about the pillows that they need? This is all happening. Anybody who can just look at this new opportunity as an entrepreneur, build a new product within days, take it to the market. I tell you, the market is unlimited at this time. It's unbelievable the amount of money that's available for it all over the world. I just got a message or a WhatsApp message from one of my people I know in USA. He found out that we are making these face shields, and he just placed an order for one container for me, and he said, "Can you ship it within a week?" And I said, "Okay, let me see what I can do. I can only respond by tomorrow morning." That is the type of business opportunity that is available out there. This opportunity is in food. This is all in all the critical industries that are out there. I'm talking of small, medium enterprises. I'm talking of large enterprises. I'm talking of the very large organizations. I'm talking of chain stores. The chain stores themselves are looking for products and they're not finding products. Anybody who's listening to me must look at if the potential of making one of these products, and he will not only tide over this time, he will not only survive over this time, he might even become prosperous over this time. The next thing, if I'm going to talk about this, then we have to talk of our supply chains. Our supply chains also are from very small to mid-sized companies, And we have to make sure that our supply chains also work. So the investment required in our supply chains is as in terms of effort, in terms of monitoring them, in terms of making sure that they have their own raw materials with them. Everything else is, again, um, which is not normal. We have to do more than normal working over there. At this time, and I was listening to the stock market presentation also. At this time, cash is king. Any organization which has cash will get an opportunity to either buy a company or expand into something which is way bigger than what they are. So you have to look at, you have to gather cash, you have to protect your cash, and you have to preserve your cash, and then use it at the right time. And I'm talking a straight business. This is hardcore entrepreneurship now. At the end, for those who can't open up their plants or can't open up their shops or do whatever, if you can't do it outside, you can do some improvement inside. This is a time when you can start doing programs, courses, trainings. Internet is full of these programs. I just started a design 101 on Udacity, and it is such an experience. Seriously, going into a classroom again with a professor and responding to his questions and asking questions to him, and you can do it online. It is absolutely fantastic. It's a new world. It's a great world. And we can do much more developing ourselves at this time while we are developing outside. And obviously philanthropy and support and what is being done by Angro and the Dawood family. I think we are all doing it on our level. We are all supporting our employees. We are all supporting our communities. We are all supporting our cities. We are all supporting the country itself. So that's something that we need to continue to do. But as long as we are working and our businesses are running, we will be able to do much more. And that is something that we have to look at. What is the new product line that you can get into so that your businesses continue? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Almasab. A few interesting points that I picked up, that we are not talking about one lockdown, we are talking about many lockdowns. And like Irfan said, and Riaz and others also highlighted, possibly we are in for a long haul, and we need to see as it progresses, how do we ensure sustainability and how do we ensure that we are able to take care of people. The other very important element is about opportunity in adversity. And clearly there are clear opportunities for innovators, for people to come up with solutions in these difficult times, thinking ahead and using their mind power to ensure that we deliver solutions for the new world and become a leader rather than a follower. So that's also a very strong and very good point that you make. And another interesting dimension is about using this opportunity to enhance your learnings. And this can be done at the organization level and also at the individual level. So thank you very much, Almasa, for bringing those insights. So as we have less time, so I won't go to the panelists and ask questions on what they stated. I'll straight go to Ghazanfar. And he's been doing a diligent job in collating the themes of questions which are coming up into our Q&A session, and let us know which ones has he picked. And then I'll direct them to each of the panelists. So Ghazanfar, over to you to give us the first question.
Yeah, I think the theme is common across many questions around the workforce. So the first question would be, what are the key challenges being faced by the workforce and adverse impact on the workforce productivity, and how is it being overcome at the moment? And a supplementary question to that would be, how is the fear factor of the workforce managed while they are attending the operations in such an environment? So you can direct it to anyone.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll take a quick comment, possibly from each of the panelists, because these are important questions. So how do you affect the fear factor? If they are in office, they'll be hit by spread, and if they are not in the office, they may be laid off. or they may face some other consequences. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with anxiety? How do you give them confidence to your employees going forward? So, Riaz, do you want to take a lead?
Sure, Waqar. Well, I think it comes, first of all, I think it starts with transparency and communication. What you have, at least that's, what I try to practice. I'm not an expert by any stretch of imagination and fairly new to this, but as Zilaf said earlier, that some principles don't change. And one of the principles that does not change is if you are transparent with your people. You have, at least for us, we all realize the place we're in. We are working for Engro. Engro is running mission critical infrastructure. There's a job to be done and we have to go and play our part. Now, then it is up to the overall Engro family to look after each other, whether it's providing testing facilities, whether it's providing proper quarantining facilities, whether it's providing health facilities to the people and their families. So for us, it is extremely, extremely important to provide that peace of mind for the people who are working on the front lines. So we're not doing any pay cuts. We're not laying off people right now. Yes, we haven't taken increments because we thought that because of the uncertainty and the fact that some of our budgets are going to get diverted towards health of our people and their families. So we did that, but there are no pay cuts. There are no layoffs as of now. And I think for me, it starts with transparent communication, making people realize where they fit in the overall larger equation, what the purpose of the company is, and where they fit in. And if one is able to do it and then make sure that there is a proper system ensuring well-being of them and their families, I guess that's how we do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Riaz. Irfan, can I have your perspective? How do you deal with anxiety of people if they come to work, they face the spread. If they don't come to work, there may be consequences. And how do you give them confidence for the future?
Yeah, so in our case, we all are working from home. It sounds simpler and easier, but actually what we have figured out, or all the comments and feedback coming from employees, is creating a lot of fatigue. While you are a lot more productive, there are a lot of meetings, but employees feel, because also there's a huge responsibility on us to make sure that we have ample capacity enhancement, to make sure that our products and services are up and running. So it creates a lot of, anxiety and fatigue. How are we dealing with it? And also, the fact that, in a normal situation, you have ample opportunity to socialize with your other colleagues, refresh your mind and come back to the work, but it's not happening these days. How we're doing it is to create a lot of arenas for employee engagement. These are all online arenas. So how you use your, tools like Facebook at Work, which we use, create a lot of social engagement, a lot of fun, even music jams, etc., where employees can sort of take part, communicate with each other, share their challenges. This is on top of, what I mentioned earlier, to have a deeper understanding that and set certain rules and use heart and emotional intelligence to connect with your employees to see what sort of challenges they may be facing and give them, certain leeway in those special circumstances.
Thank you, Irfan. So that I give more time to questions, I'll come back to other panelists for other questions. Ghazanfar, can I have the next question?
The next question is, what do panelists consider back to normal? Is it a new normal, or is it literally back to pre-COVID-19 impact, and how would we transition to that environment?
Very good question. Zilaf, can I have you to answer this first? What do you think will be the new normal? Is it going back to pre-March, if you like, or will it be really a new normal, and what could it be? Zilaf?
Gee, thank you. I think I would start by saying that, as I had mentioned earlier, we as leaders, how we act and how we behave is going to determine the future of the organizations. And us being market leaders, as Gayas was mentioning about what do you do to alleviate anxieties and fears and provide the safety net, and extremely stringent, whether it is from manufacturing to whether it is from our sales team, how do you have them covered so that you address those? Now, what the new normal again would be, all the learnings that we are getting as to how we continue, which is what we are doing, to have 100% of our facilities, workforce, consumer demand. We have to meet all of those. What are the ways in which we are doing it differently today so that those get incorporated and that becomes the new normal for us? So what again is not going to change is the leadership that we have in our mindsets and the leadership that we provide, whether it is to the business community, whether it is as corporate citizens, whether it is, that is what we call non-negotiable. But what the new normal would be, what is a better way of working that we were able to now explore coming out of these times, whether it is through our sales force and how they are connecting and communicating, whether it is through our manufacturing side, how they are finding solutions to everyday problems and yet not negotiating on being leaders in everything that you do. So I see the new normal, because what's important is, again, what we always say and believe in. If the fundamentals are correct, and if the higher purpose is built in, profits follow. So the new normal would be how to overcome the challenges that you're going to face, whether it is in the provision of the services, whether it is continuing to delight the consumers, whether it is connecting with the communities so that you continue to lead in the efforts in your communities. What are the new learnings that we see from here, which would actually be incorporated to not only, and of course, your level of preparedness has a lot to do with it, and your level of preparedness for future becomes even better. So the new normal would be how people are going to be viewing the value that they add and how they are able to add that, regardless of what circumstance or what situation you are in, to be coming up with innovative, creative solutions and keep the wheels of the company and the economy and the contributions that we make to the community intact.
Thank you. Thank you, Zila. Farooq, your view. Are we going to go back to pre-COVID normal, or will we actually see a new normal?
Thank you, Waqar. I think it's important to recognize that as human beings, whether you're the CEO, manager of a department, or a worker on the shop floor, the tendency is to go back to your comfort zone, to go back to the way you worked and have always worked. And I think that is really will be the challenge for all leaders at different parts of the organization, that we do not allow that to happen, because I think there are serious lessons to be learned, and we must learn them, and we must make sure that those are embedded and learned by the whole organization. Otherwise, the tendency is to go back to our old ways of working. And to the earlier question that was being asked, it was interesting, just 2-3 weeks ago, I don't think any of us thought that this is where we would be. And the challenge that I was finding was in terms of actually educating our heads of departments, our business heads, the staff, that we have to make these changes, because no one really believed that social isolation, working from home, it's really going to happen. Yes, we have to do the exercise, to test all of this, but it's not really going to happen. So I think education was very important. Yes, the people got afraid, but that was much later in the cycle. Um, we have about over 200 people in a Karachi office, and about 18, 20 are coming in to the office. And but externally, no one can tell the difference. Internally, there is a lot of chaos, and there was a lot of chaos that we have to deal with, because it is very different working from remotely as opposed to working in one location.
Okay. Almasab, I'll ask another question which has also come in, and I'll possibly take one more question from Ghazanfar before we head to the conclusion. And the question is, what are the things that employees and individuals need to do to stay motivated in these unprecedented times? So what are some of the tips you can offer them? And also a quick insight from you on whether you feel the world will go back to pre-COVID or will it be a new norm? So both things, if you can address quickly. Please unmute your mic, Almasa. Please unmute. Yeah.
Second question first. I think the fundamental ethics and morality is going to stay the same as it is now. I don't see much changes on that. We will be more humanitarian by the time we are through this 1 year period, 1.5 year period, or whatever. This will be more humanitarian. We'll be more sympathetic. We will have more empathy for other human beings. And this might not be between individuals, it might be between countries also, it might be on the political level also. So I see the world changing in a better way, and more to a more livable world in the future. As far as companies are concerned, I must say that with the new diversifications that are happening and new innovations that are coming in, and with IT playing a role in our life and we getting used to IT, we are never going to go back to the same situation. My own company, for example, we were in automotive components, we were working with fast-moving consumer good companies, we were working with solar energy companies, we have our own IPP over there also. But I think the world has changed. We are going into medical devices now, and that was something that we never thought that we will go into. So our company will not be the same as in the future as it was. The other question is about employees and what's going and motivation of our employees. Basically, it's a two-way street. What happens is that when we go to the company and we talk to them and we give them confidence that we lead from the front. If we are home and we ask our employees to go to the shop floor or to the office, and we are afraid about our life, but we are not afraid of their life, that doesn't happen. You have to lead from the front. If you are leading from the front, I think everybody follows and they are extremely motivated. The next is, yes, they also hear all the news on the television, they read the newspapers, they hear the radio. They are also aware of what's happening around them. That's where you need to train them. You have to teach them. You have to handhold them. You have to handhold their families. You have to send written material to the families. You have to tell them what to go and tell their families, so that the families also, for example, wash their hands or eat in clean pans or plates. Don't use the same towel. Everybody doesn't use the same towel. Blah blah blah. Whatever. So you have to make a list of all of those things and share it with them and train them. Once they're in the factory or the plant or in the office, we have to make sure that the environment is such that they feel comfortable, that they will not be infected by any virus in the environment, in the office environment at least. We are more worried because we have managed our office environment, but we are not managing the homes and where the people go after hours. So we try to ask everybody to come to office after washing their clothes in soap every day. making sure they have a bath, and making sure that when they go back, they do the same thing again when they reach their families, and they do the same thing with the families. So it's an effort. It's a huge effort trying to teach them, train them, keep them comfortable, and leading from the front. I have no problem with motivating my employees.
Thank you. Thank you. Ghazenfar, last question.
So last question is, in case of an extended lockdown, are we prepared as businesses, economy, and in infrastructure to go through such a period of extended lockdown?
So, Riaz, can you take this one? I'll come to the others, but please keep the
Sure.
responses extremely brief because we are running out of time.
Sure. If I was to answer for Engro, as I said, that since we are, providing a lot of essential services and products, so for us, we have to work through the lockdowns. Can Pakistan afford extended lockdowns? That squarely depends on how well we utilize the initial lockdowns. And I think that's what the general public needs to understand, that if we really get serious in the first lockdown or the first couple of lockdowns, then the need for future lockdowns will go down, or the need for the future lockdowns will come later. But if we don't get it right in the first maybe 2 lockdowns or the first 30 days of lockdowns, and we squander away the lockdowns, then obviously, a country which is already going through so much crisis, both on the external front as well as the fiscal issues, and the overall GDP growth, and the situation that we're in, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to become extremely difficult to handle it. So utilize the first few lockdowns. I think that's the key here.
Thank you. Irfan, your quick comments. Can we afford extended lockdown?
I don't think we have any option. So I think this is extremely important for everyone to understand. And then we need to make best use of it. I know it's easy to say that, but then everyone has to think about what does it mean for themselves, individual capacity, as well as for the businesses. But we need to be creative, we need to be innovative, and we need to think out of the box.
Farooq, your quick views. Can we afford extended lockdowns?
Business-wise, we may be able to with great difficulty, but I think socially, I think it will be very difficult, if not impossible.
Okay, Ilvan, your final comments. Can we afford extended lockdown?
I think no country in the world can afford very large lockdowns. No wonder all of those countries have brought their interest rates to nearly zero, because they know that for the period that businesses will not be working, they won't be able to produce or generate revenue to be able to pay the banks and the other institutions. I think our country will have to learn very quickly how to manage it. We are good learners. I think the government will also learn, and we'll also learn that there are some things that need to be done quickly to be able to ensure that we survive and we get out of this difficult time.
Thank you. Zilaf, your last comments. Can we afford extended lockdowns?
The simple answer to that question is the balance between the lockdowns and ensuring the health and safety would have to be maintained, because it is not just the lockdown itself, but the consequences of extended lockdowns socially and with our demographics, and the kind of unrest that may lead to may become a bigger problem to manage. And hence the balance is extremely important. And hence, as we in our companies, just to give an example, if we are going through a transformation journey for many years, responsibility, thought leadership, it was a test of the transformation where in a matter of less than a week, there was yet another transformation that was required. That is the kind of agile thinking that at all levels whether it is our government level or whether it is our corporate leadership level, we have to continue to maintain so that the balance between the economics of the masses and the continuity of business can continue to be achieved.
Thank you. During the course of this discussion, we ran a poll. So I would request Ghazanfar to share the results of the poll as we went through the discussion so that all our audience can view what you state to different questions that we pose. Ghazanfar, over to you.
The poll results are visible to all audience, so they can see on their screen.
If you can quickly run them through as well, Ghazanfar.
Yeah. So the first question was how long you believe this state of uncertainty for business will continue. Majority, 43% thought 3 months, 18% thought 1 month, and 31% thought 6 months. The second question was how good a job business leadership has done so far in these times. There is a tie of 41% each on good and fair. The third question is, in your opinion, what is more important, carrying on with the lockdown or give economy a preference and end the lockdown now? 68% have voted for carrying on with the lockdown. And the last question is, how effective did you find your own business continuity plan in current crisis? And 50% thought it's somewhat effective, 33% thought it's very effective, and 19% thought it's less effective.
Thank you very much, Ghazanfar. I'll just give less than a minute to each of the participants to give your concluding comment. Brevity is your test now. Riaz, I start with you.
So Waqar, just I think, like I said, I'm not an expert here, but I would just say three things, follow three things: engage and communicate as much as possible with the people in the organization. Use the technology that is already implemented and believe in the technology that is implemented. And
Sorry.
you know, and that's extremely critical. And the third and the most important, I think it applies to managers of teams or CEOs or anyone, all the leaders, make decisions. You're not going to get perfect information. So
yeah, make decisions. Farooq, your insight, less than a minute.
I would say conserve cash, understand the weakest link in your business chain, and create trust amongst the team, be flexible, and do as much as you can to help the community around you, because in the end, the community has to come out, has to survive this if business is to continue.
Thank you, Farooq. Irfan.
Yeah, I truly hope that we start investing a lot more in our healthcare. I think that's first and foremost. Secondly, use this opportunity to see how you can upskill yourself, because the future, the new normal will be very different. I think there's a humongous opportunity for our youth, the demographic dividend we talk about, to leverage technology, upskill themselves, and then their future will be very bright, inshallah.
Thank you. Zila, your concluding comments?
I wish and hope and pray that all of us get through this healthy and safe. I cannot emphasize enough the responsibility on all of us as corporate business leaders at all levels. Everyone is looking towards you. This is not the time to be asking for what your governments can do for you. This is the time to be showing what you can do for your companies, for your communities, and provide the kind of thought leadership that is required to see us through these difficult times.
Thank you, Zila. Falmaz Saab, your final comment.
I'll go back to the business continuity, the title of today's discussion. And I remember what Henry Ford said about recession, and he said, recession is good. It makes you think. Unfortunately, it doesn't last very long. So this adverse time that we are going through, let's do the thinking that is necessary. Let's innovate. let's make sure, and I agree with Zila, we have to look after not our people in our companies, but in our society also. While we are doing all that, the world has to spin around and entrepreneurs. So let's do a great job together and make sure that we come out of it unscathed.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, participants, for being here, listening to us. I want to thank all the panelists for providing great insight. One thing which has come out: the world will not go back to pre-March, or for that matter, pre-COVID. We are going to see a new world. We are going to see a new world which will be based on the purpose of the organization, where values and mission will be tested to the hilt and they need to be brought to life. We are going to see a world where technology and social distancing is going to be the center, going to be at the center on anything and everything that will happen as we go into the new world. And very important that employees and customers and communities, all three, will stay at the center of what we are going to see post-COVID. Me signing off. Thank you very much, all of you. Once again, I would hand over to Asfar for his concluding comments, and then we close. Once again, from my side, thank you so much.
There is no special concluding comments. Thanks to all the panelists, moderator, and the participants. And next third dialogue on April 13, Monday, 9:30 p.m. We will share the details, topics, and all the panelists' names tomorrow. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.